I'm not sure if they are just a very good team that knows how to win, or if they are just a good team who had a little bit of good fortune in this past week, right? I mean, that's how I look at these 7 games. They literally could have lost each one of them individually. Each one of the 5 victories that they had, they were either losing at some point or, the game was in the balance at some point. And they found a way to win them. And that's good on them. And I think I lean more towards them being the very good team because I just recognize that in baseball in 2026, very good teams have flaws.
Yeah.
Whereas maybe in years past, going back, 5-10 years, very good teams had very few flaws, right? And now it just is. This is what the sport is, right? And I think, as I watch the Braves really struggle, and even the Dodgers have hit some rough spots. The Yankees got swept by a last place Red Sox team this weekend. Like, the good teams are going to have problems. It's just the nature of the game. And I don't know, maybe that makes it better. Maybe it makes the sport better. Maybe the uncertainty of what can happen at any time makes the sport that much more intriguing, makes it more of a soap opera kind of thing. But the reality of it is that the Phillies are probably amongst the 5 best teams in the sport, even with the holes that they have, which is crazy to think. But I think that that's probably the truth.
Well, as of this morning, if you go to MLB.com and you look at the refresh power rankings, the Phillies are the 5th best team according to the league's website. And I don't know if that's true or not, but they're definitely in the conversation. And when I say that they could have easily gone 0-7 on this road trip, I don't even necessarily mean to paint that in a negative way. I know it sounds inherently negative, but in some way, I just applaud the fact that they've been resourceful and they're finding different ways to win. Obviously, when you have a game like yesterday, that was one of those ones where I kind of wanted to rip the television off the wall. That's kind of been my go-to phrase here, when things aren't going well. The bullpen, I have massive concerns about in this moment. I want to talk about that in a little bit more depth later. But when you get a guy like Kyle Schwarber that can do what he does, that eliminates a lot of and hides a lot of the problems. And, had the Phillies lost that game yesterday, I think that the tone on this show this morning would have been a little bit different. But guess what? They didn't lose the game. And they didn't lose 7 games on this road trip. They only lost 2 of them, And so you have to take it for what it is. I see the run differential. I see that they're still middle of the pack. I know that their expected win-loss is roughly 500. I know that, it seems like in some ways their output has been better than what they really are. But you said it. You look around the sport, all of these teams have flaws, or most of these teams have flaws. And, there may be a skill in finding ways to win. I texted you that in some ways, this has a little bit of a Sirianni Hurts Eagles feel to it, where you get done watching a game and you go, well, I was pretty skeptical for the duration of it and even downright miserable for some of it, and yet they won again. And that is sort of like what this team is right now.
Yeah. It's funny, but that's a good comparison, right? Like, you question. We always question Nick Sirianni. We always question Jalen Hurts, and yet they find ways to win. And we don't know if that's because they're just good and this is what they do, or if they're a little bit lucky. And it's probably a little bit of both, right? And good teams create their own luck sometimes, and that's kind of probably where we're at this point with the Phillies. There are things that we could sit here and we're gonna break down individuals. We're gonna look at the certain things. The bullpen was a tightrope walk this weekend, right? I've got to talk about that a little bit. But yeah, there's enough good going on right now that even the things that you sit there and say these are your red flags, they're not as big of a red flag as maybe they were 2 months ago.
Yeah, and one of the other things I would point out when you look at where they stand, if you look at strength of schedule thus far, I believe they have the 6th hardest schedule. They've played the 6th hardest schedule to date. They've played 51 games against teams over 500 as of this morning. They're 3 games over 500 against teams with winning records. And that's nothing that blows you away, but you look at it, they're one of the best teams in the sport in terms of their record against winning teams. And that takes into the account that we've talked about how they struggled against the Cubs. They struggled against the Braves earlier in the year. They struggled against Milwaukee and LA more recently. And like that and we said it on Friday, that's the thing that they're going to have to do. They're going to continue to pile up these wins. They're probably going to end up winning. I mean, they're on pace as we speak for 91 wins this morning. Do they get there? Like, yeah, maybe. At some point, the next step in this is going to be is showing that you can play with these elite level teams in the National League. It's the one thing that they haven't done yet, but you can't sit here and say that this thing's a fraud either, or that they're lucky to be. Like you can, but I look at it and say like they're playing well against good teams overall. It's not like they're just beating up on all the cupcakes and then they're 12 games under against teams with winning records. So like. I know how we want to feel and how we want to paint this. And like when you stand back and actually look at the numbers, though, it just doesn't really support it.
No, you're right, Bob. And that's why, we have to hand out flowers today to the Phillies, because, they deserve, credit for what they've done. No matter how they've done it, they found a way. And whether it's you sit there and say, oh, they were being carried by their rotation for a little while. Yeah, they were. Or Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber went nuts for 2 weeks. Yeah, they did. Like these things happen, but it's been a little bit of everybody, right? Like if you look at, I just look at these past 7 games as kind of a microcosm of the season. And when you go back and look through it, every time something big and important happened, it was a different guy.
Yeah.
It was a different person coming through for them in those moments. And you sit there and go, you know what? That's what good teams do. They have that. They have the ability to have it be. It doesn't have to be the same guy every time. So I give them props for that.